Hello everyone, I am Dr. Kartika Kannan, Professor of Oral Medicine and Radiology, Majma University, Saudi Arabia. You can follow me in my Instagram, skk_oral medicine, and my YouTube channel is Learning Made Simple. So in this video, I am going to talk about recurrent aphthous stomatitis, popularly known as aphthous ulcers or canker sores. So let me begin with an ulcer. An ulcer is defined as the break in the continuity of surface epithelium due to molecular necrosis brought about by various etiological factors like trauma, infection, nutritional deficiency, etc., immunological, etc. Whereas recurrent aphthous stomatitis is a condition characterized by recurring ulcers confined only to oral mucosa without any signs and symptoms of a systemic disease. Okay. Coming to the etiological factors, it is well agreed that the etiology of aphthous ulcer is multifactorial. Coming to the first factor, that is the infection. It was thought that RAS occur because of cross hypersensitivity reaction of a commensal bacteria which was present in the oral cavity. Streptococcus sanguis, now it is called as Streptococcus mitis. Various other microorganisms like H. pylori, virus like Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus have also been implicated as an etiological factor, but studies have disproved this concept of infectious origin. So the take-home message is aphthous ulcers are not infectious and hence are not contagious. The next etiological factor is nutritional factors. Deficiency of micronutrients like iron, zinc, vitamin B complex, which includes B6, B9, and B12, could be the cause in a small subset of RAS patients. So, it is again a proof that micronutrients and microminerals are nanorobots of human health. The next etiological factor we are going to discuss is hereditary. Children of RAS positive patients have 90% chance for developing recurrent aphthous stomatitis, while the children from RAS negative parents have only 20% risk of developing RAS. RAS have been strongly associated with human leukocytic antigen B12, B51, and DR5. So it proves the saying, like parent, like the child. So it has a familial tendency. The next etiological factor we are going to discuss is immunology. Due to an unknown antigenic stimulation, the keratinocyte of the oral mucosa produced increased amount of cytokines like interleukin 2 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. These cytokines attract the T cells towards the oral epithelium. The T cell mediated cytotoxicity to the oral epithelium is said to be the strong factor for the development of aphthous ulcer. Some of the literature also reports increased amount of CD8 or suppressor T cells in RAS patients. Only the peripheral CD8 cells, not the systemic. So here in RAS, our defense or immunity has done the offense or the disease. Coming to the precipitating factors, there are factors like trauma, psychological stress and anxiety, allergy to the food and preservatives, and endocrinal conditions associated with menstrual cycle. So if an individual is already vulnerable for developing recurrent aphthous stomatitis, these precipitating factors can precipitate an attack of aphthous ulcer. If you are already vulnerable, even a minimal trauma can precipitate a formation of aphthous ulcer. And the second factor is psychological stress and anxiety. In institutions, it is quite common that during the examination process, many of the students will get recurrent aphthous stomatitis. So stress and anxiety can precipitate an attack of aphthous ulcer. And people who are allergic to food ingredients like gluten, figs, nut, potatoes, pineapple, cheese, and other ingredients can develop aphthous ulcer. And undoubtedly, it has been proved that the altered level of progesterone during the premenstrual period and post-ovulation period makes the females more vulnerable for the occurrence of aphthous stomatitis. So that is about the precipitating factors. Now coming to the clinical features, aphthous ulcer is a disease of youngsters. The peak age of incidence is 10 to 30 years, and it is more commonly seen in females than in men. And when the disease occurs, it is preceded by a prodromal burning sensation, erythema, and papule, which disintegrate into ulcers. One important thing you should notice, aphthous ulcers are not preceded by vesicle formation. There is no vesicle formation, and you won't see any tissue tags in and around the ulcers. And it recurs. That is the most characteristic feature of aphthous ulcer. Recurrent episodes of ulcers, and the frequency may vary from individual to individual. Continuing with the clinical features, the number of ulcers usually will be around 4 to 6, but it may extend high up to 100 in number. And the site is very peculiar for aphthous ulcers. We know the oral mucosa, we broadly divide it into keratinized and non-keratinized, lining and masticatory mucosa. Okay, and these aphthous ulcers are more common in sites which are lined by non-keratinized mucosa or lining mucosa, like labial mucosa, buccal mucosa, floor of the mouth, soft palate, etc. And regarding the appearance, the aphthous ulcer is so typical in its clinical presentation. They say it is round or ovoid, and it is shallow, and it has a slough in the floor, and it is surrounded by an erythematous halo. Okay. There are three clinical types: aphthous minor, aphthous major, and herpetiform aphthous. So let us first discuss about aphthous minor, which is otherwise called as Mikulicz aphthous. It is the most common variant, and it accounts for the 80% of aphthous ulcer. It is characterized by ulcers less than 1 centimeter that size. That is the criteria. Usually it will be 3 to 4 millimeter in size, but in general it is less than 1 centimeter in size. And usually it heals with 10 to 14 days. And while it heals, there won't be any formation of scarring. And the appearance of the aphthous minor is typical. As I said previously, there will be multiple ulcers. It will be round, and it is shallow and symmetric ulcers, and it will be surrounded by an erythematous halo. And the most common site is the buccal mucosa and the labial mucosa. Here are the pictures which I want to show you, where you can see the labial mucosa is showing a ulcer here. Okay, and another one on the upper labial mucosa. Here you can see the typical characteristic appearance are round, and you can see the yellowish slough in the floor and surrounded by an erythematous halo. Here you could see two ulcers in the alveolar mucosa. Alveolar mucosa is also a lining mucosa or non-keratinized mucosa, which is ovoid in shape and showing the yellowish white floor and the erythematous halo. When it occurs on the lateral border of the tongue or something like this, the parotid papilla, there is possibility of trauma from the occlusal surface, and the ulcer may have an irregular shape. Okay, and it may also extend to a little bit on the dorsum of the tongue because of the trauma. As I said previously, you can see this ulcer is extending little towards the dorsum of the tongue, probably because of the traumatic extension. Okay, and here it is on the lateral border of the tongue, which is also a non-keratinized mucosa. And here you can see an ulcer in the soft palate of the soft palate, which is also a lining mucosa area. As I said, the number may vary from 4 to 6, or it can go up to 10. Here you can see multiple small ulcers. Sometimes they coalesce to form an irregular ulcer also. In this patient, you can see here 1, 2, and 3 ulcers, 3 and 4 ulcers on the buccal mucosa and labial mucosa. Now, the second type of aphthous ulcer we are going to discuss is aphthous major, which is otherwise called as Sutton's disease, and periadenitis mucosa necrotica recurrens. Look at the terminology. Periadenitis, the minor salivary gland present there will be inflamed, and mucosa, it occurs in the oral mucosa. Necrotica, there will be a large area of slough present, and recurrence, that means it recurs. It constitutes about 10 to 15% of RAS. And the most important diagnostic feature is the size is more than 1 centimeter. And it takes a long time, more than 3 weeks, may extend up to 6 weeks for healing. Any ulcer in the oral mucosa, if it is present without a sign of healing, we may have to do biopsy to rule out oral commissal carcinoma. And when aphthous major ulcer heal, it will scar the oral mucosa. There are only very few conditions which produces scar in the oral mucosa, and one among them is aphthous major. It usually occurs as a large, deep, painful ulcers in labial mucosa, soft palate, and tonsillar fosses. These are the common sites for aphthous major. So let me show you a case of an aphthous major ulcer in the labial mucosa. Here you can see a large ulcer, and it present for more than 4 weeks. Okay, and another one developing here, and the previous healed areas shows pale, blanched, and firm areas suggesting of scarring from the previous ulcers. Now, the third type is called as herpetiform aphthe. It constitutes about 5% of RAS, and it is named as herpetiform aphthe because of its clinical resemblance to herpes ulcers. You may be knowing herpes ulcers used to come as a crops of ulcers. Many number of small pinheaded like ulcers will come as a cluster. So this type of aphthous ulcer resembles the herpes ulcer. So that is why it is called as herpetiform aphthe. It has nothing to do with herpes virus. And when it occurs, there may be crops of small pinheaded like ulcer extend up to 100 in number, and usually 1 to 3 millimeter in diameter. And there will be always a background of diffuse erythema. Okay, and small ulcers may coalesce to form large irregular ulcers. And the common site is non-keratinized oral mucosa. And here is a classical case where you can see the ventral surface of the tongue and the labial mucosa looks like a diffuse erythema, like just like a carpet, red carpet. And in that there are small pinheaded like clusters of ulcers looking like herpetic ulcers. Okay, and here you can see the small ulcers have coalesced to form a large irregular ulcer, a classical case of herpetiform aphthe. Now, when we take history for an aphthous ulcer patient, these are the things that we should keep it in mind. The mode of onset, usually there will be a prodromal burning and erythema and a papule and disintegrate into ulcers, and there won't be any vesicle formation in this case of RAS. And duration, majority of the aphthous ulcers are acute ulcers, whereas aphthous major is a chronic ulcer. And aphthous ulcers are really painful. As it is inflammatory ulcers, it will be painful. And intraorally, we won't ask for the discharge because the secretion from the discharge from the ulcers usually will be diluted or washed away by the saliva. So we don't take this history when we deal with an RAS patient. Associated disease, anything is present or not. If it is present, we should think of other conditions like Beckett syndrome and Ritter syndrome. Aphthous ulcer, by strict rules, there is no systemic symptoms or sign of a disease. And the next thing we should keep it in mind is we should inquire whether it is a primary or recurrent. Aphthous ulcers are usually recurrent ulcers. And aphthous ulcers are usually multiple ulcers. So these are the history that we should keep it in mind when we deal with a aphthous ulcer patient. While doing examination, during inspection, number of ulcers, aphthous ulcers usually present as multiple ulcers. Size 1 to 3 millimeter, and if it is more than 1 centimeter, it is aphthous major. Shape is usually round or ovoid. Site, it's very peculiar. It is non-keratinized mucosa or lining mucosa. Floor of the ulcer usually shows yellowish white slough. If it is a healing ulcer, it may show a red granular surface. And edge is usually sloping if it is a healing ulcer. And discharge, we won't look for the discharge in aphthous ulcer. And surrounding area and pigmentation, there may be an erythematous halo always present around the aphthous ulcer. Aphthous ulcers are painful, there is tenderness on palpation, and there won't be any induration in aphthous ulcers. And mobility of ulcer, aphthous ulcers can be is mobile, and bleeding may be there. And when there is an aphthous ulcer, the regional lymph node will be enlarged. So you should look for all these examination finding when we look for aphthous ulcer. And what are the criteria for the diagnosis? This is the criteria proposed by Nath in 2004. The major criteria includes the clinical appearance, multiple round or oval ulcers, shallow, surrounded by erythematous halo, and the ulcers never preceded by vesicle. That is an important history. And the size is usually less than 1 centimeter. That is the first criteria, clinical appearance. Second is the recurrence. There should be at least 3 attacks of recurrent aphthous stomatitis in the past 3 years. That is one of the criteria. And when the ulcer occur, it should not occur in the same site, it should be in different sites. And mechanical hyperalgesia. So we all know that aphthous ulcer are inflammatory ulcers and are associated with severe pain, and it poses difficulty to the patient, like difficulty in eating, speaking, and swallowing. And self-limitation of the condition. Aphthous ulcers are self-limiting conditions. Usually it will heal without treatment within 2 weeks, 10 to 14 days. So these are the 4 major criteria proposed by him. And regarding the minor criteria, family history, as I said, like parents, like child, always there will be positive family history. Age of onset, it is a disease of young age. So the first attack has to be below 40 years. Location, the next criteria is location. Location is non-keratinized mucosa or lining mucosa, like labial mucosa, buccal mucosa, floor of the mouth, lateral border of the tongue, ventral surface of the tongue, soft palate. Duration, usually few days to few weeks. Pattern of recurrence, irregular, but definitely it should be recurrent ulcers. Okay. Histopathological examination is non-specific. So we may do biopsy in cases of aphthous major to rule out malignancy. Presence of predisposing factors, I told you, any trauma, any food allergy, stress could act as a predisposing factor. Presence of hematinic deficiencies like iron, zinc, and micronutrients are one of the factor for minor diagnostic factor for aphthous ulcer. Negative association of smoking. Usually the incidence of aphthous ulcer is less in smokers. Or if a smoker stops, there is every possibility there is a chance of getting recurrent aphthous stomatitis. Okay. Therapeutic trial with steroid. Aphthous ulcers in general respond to steroid. So these are the minor criteria proposed by Nath in 2004. So what investigation we can do? We can do a hematological workup to exclude nutritional deficiency. The scraping from the aphthous ulcer has been taken and cytology has been done, and literature shows aphthous ulcer, the scraping, the cytology from the aphthous ulcer may show Anitskov or caterpillar cells, which are nothing but the chromatin material will condense in the middle, and small finger-like projections radiating towards the outer cell membrane. So such cells have been seen in many other conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and patients who are under chemotherapy, etc. So that may be also seen in aphthous ulcer, but it is not specific. Biopsy, as I said previously, it is not mandatory, but can be done in aphthous major to rule out oral commensal carcinoma in aphthous major. Regarding the management, so we have the topical management and the systemic management. So we have protective emollient like Orabase. We have different types of topical steroid, and the most common one is triamcinolone acetonide. It is available in the cream form that can be applied for the oral mucosa. Okay, and the tetracycline mouthwash has been reported very effective in the case of herpetiform aphthei. But there is a problem with tetracycline mouthwash. There is a possibility of microorganism developing resistance against topical use of tetracycline. So, and in the case of aphthous major, which resist all these local treatment, we can try intralesional injection of triamcinolone acetonide. Topical anesthetics like benzocaine, topical antiseptics like chlorhexidine can also give relief in the case of aphthous minor. Cases which are not controlled by topical, we may have to think of systemic management, or in cases where there is more number of ulcers and more number of recurrence, then we have to think of systemic management. Prednisolone, we may have to go up to 20 to 40 milligram per day, and gradually the dose is tapered once the disease is controlled. There is another group of drugs coming under the immunomodulant therapy, which includes dapsone, levamisole, thalidomide, and pentoxifylline. So this could give a relief if there is. This should be tried in cases where there is more number of recurrence. And dietary supplement, of course, is very effective, at least in some subset of aphthous ulcer patient, which includes iron, zinc, and B complex and retinoids. And other symptomatic treatment includes laser ablation and chemical cauterizing of the aphthous ulcers with silver nitrate. So these are the various treatment options that is available for aphthous ulcer, and the treatment is decided based upon the presentation of each patient. And I have published an article along with Prof. Sivapada Sundaram from India, oral ulcers review. It has come in Journal of Dentistry and Oral Disorders. So you can have a look at this article. Different types of ulcers that occurs in the oral cavity. We have made a publication. So thank you for watching. I hope this video will be useful for undergraduates and postgraduate students of oral medicine, and also for the general practitioners in dentistry. Thank you for watching my video. If you like my channel, please like, share, and subscribe my channel.